This fight scene between the Spider-Verse and Kingpin's team is one of the best scenes in the entire movie. It's not the best, that would obviously go to the leap of faith, but it is a really good scene, and it's because of how many different plot beats it manages to seamlessly handle. So, to provide a little bit of context to this scene, just before this scene, you had almost all of the Spider Gang, everybody except for Peter B. Parker, losing faith in Miles. Because he is just not skilled enough to be Spider Man just yet, and they don't really have too much time. Miles lives in shame, goes to talk to his uncle, finds out that he isn't there, so he writes him a letter. And then you find out that his uncle is the Prowler. So immediately this is devastating to learn because of two major reasons. One is just because of how close Miles and his uncle were, and in many ways Miles is closer to his uncle than his own father. Mainly because his uncle actually does understand Miles and knows exactly what Miles is trying to communicate, unlike his father who just doesn't pick up on those kinds of things. And they both just share very similar interest in street art and music. In fact, Uncle Aaron might be a huge reason as to why Miles has such a deep interest in those two things. But he is extremely close to his uncle, and the revelation that he is the Prowler, a guy who is trying to kill him, and also the kind of dirty things he does and who he works for, absolutely devastates Miles. The second level is because now Miles doesn't feel like he has a safe place where he just has someone he can talk to anymore. He clearly cannot open up about being Spider-Man and the things he is going through to his father, because his father would probably care about whether or not Miles did his homework, and he's just not the most open guy to explain all of this to. The Spider Gang are the reason Miles is just going through a crisis of confidence and constantly feeling like he is letting other people down. And then exactly after that scene where he lives in shame from the Spider Gang, you have him going to Uncle Aaron because he felt like he was the only person Miles could talk to. And now he knows that this is the most dangerous place out of all of them. So he runs, we get a really cool chase scene. But then you have Miles just letting the Prowler follow him to the Spider Gang's location. And this is while the Spider Gang is still in the process of planning out their attack on Kingpin and stop the Collider. We also get to know that Peter B. Parker still believes Miles has what it takes, much to the disgruntlement of the other Spider people. But Miles shows up and he is still new to being Spider-Man, so he sloppily lets the villains know exactly where he is and also where the rest of the team is. Then you have the fight scene, which is large, chaotic, and hard to follow, but they do make it a point to show you that Miles is still a bad Spider-Man and pretty much more burden than help, at least at this point in the story, because he can't fight the Scorpion on his own, and the rest of the team has to cover his ass on top of protecting the Goober. But then you bring back the thread of Miles and his uncle when the Prowler shows up to the fight scene, and Miles still has not had enough time to process this, so he is completely paralyzed and unable to move, which when you are fighting against a whole bunch of supervillains is the last thing you want to do. So Peter and the other Spider people do the best they can to protect Miles, but they're preoccupied and fighting for their own lives. So Miles is once again just left by himself to fend off the Prowler. And the Prowler is not pulling any punches. He is trying to kill him and has no mercy whatsoever. Which, when you add the fact that this is Miles' uncle trying to kill him, just adds an extra layer of devastation and intensity to this entire scene. And then Miles actually reveals his face to his uncle as a last resort. Now, Uncle Aaron is devastated because Miles knows what kind of person his uncle actually is, and he is ashamed and also devastated that he was hunting and trying to kill his nephew, the one he loved so much. So, he puts Miles' mask back on him. He stands back trying to comfort Miles because he does genuinely love him, but Kingpin just takes a shot and takes out the Prowler. Miles tried to tend to him, but he leaves himself open to being shot at, again showing you how bad of a job he is doing at being Spider-Man. and he is only saved at the last second by Peter B. Parker. And this is the moment Peter realizes that Miles is not ready for this mission or to be Spider-Man, and tells Miles to get out of the place. And then you have Miles and Uncle Aaron having a heart to heart. They are still close. Miles does realize that his uncle does love him, but he absolutely blames himself for all the things that went wrong. From compromising the mission of the Spider Gang all the way to his uncle getting shot. And again, he doesn't know how to process this. He is on the verge of breaking into tears, but his uncle comforts him and says that he is sorry, and he tries to comfort Miles and tell him that he is on his way and all he has to do is just keep going. And the fact that during his last moments of being alive, he is still using it to comfort and encourage Miles and give him all the advice that he needs, just once again shows Miles that his uncle is a good man and the only person who really understood him. But he still blames himself for his uncle's death, and even though his uncle is trying to comfort him and take blame for his own actions as the Prowler, him on the verge of death while still trying to do all of this is the biggest proof to Miles that he is no good and that he is not a good Spider-Man and no good at anything. And then you have Miles' father showing up, and he shows up as a police officer, mainly because he doesn't know that it's Miles, but he tells him to put his hands up and Miles immediately recognizes that voice. And the fact that he is being treated like a criminal is an externalization of what he actually feels like. But the fact that it's his own father doing this basically adds an even bigger wound to this. But Miles is just not ready to confront his father about all of this. It's just a little bit too much for him. So he turns invisible and takes off watching from the roof. And he is just looking at his father, losing his brother and being devastated because of it. He is just looking at how much damage and loss he is costing everybody because of the things he is doing. He is also really angry at Kingpin for what he did to his uncle, which is a nice way to make the final fight scene between him and Kingpin actually feel personal, instead of Miles being a substitute for Earth 1610 Peter Parker. So yeah, there you go. One of the best scenes in Into the Spider-Verse. I would say it's probably the second best scene in the entire movie. Obviously, the first place, again, just goes to the leap of faith, which is actually what I have been trying to analyze for the last 2 weeks, and I still have a lot of things that I need to work out about that, but hopefully I can release it soon. But hey, if you like this video, then please do drop a like on this video, and if you're a fan of the type of content that I'm covering, then make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on future videos. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a fantastic day. See you. Bye.